The sunlight streamed through the glass walls of our Napa Valley estate, casting long, golden rays across the marble floor. I stood alone in the kitchen, gripping the letter with trembling hands. The words at the top read, "Congratulations." Below that, the seal of Stanford University shone like a symbol of everything I had fought for. My heart pounded, not with anxiety but pride. After years of staying up until 2 a.m., studying while everyone else slept, this moment was finally mine. "Mom? Dad?" I called, trying to steady my voice. "I got in. Stanford. I got in." Footsteps echoed down the hallway. My mother appeared first, pristine in her pressed cream suit, heels clacking against the tiles. Her expression was unreadable, almost cold. My father followed behind her, his phone still in hand, his tie loosened like he hadn't bothered to prepare for anything important. "That's nice," Mom said, her voice soft but distant. "Stanford is very competitive. Congratulations, Isla." I blinked. That was it. No jug, no smile? I looked at Dad, hoping for more. "We need to talk," he said instead. Something in his tone made my stomach twist. We walked to the living room, the one we only used for guests or serious discussions. The Stanford letter still clutched in my hand, I sank into the velvet armchair. My parents sat across from me on the long leather sofa. Dad rested his elbows on his knees and sighed. "It's about your college fund," he began. "We've made a strategic decision." I froze. That word, strategic, it always meant Ethan. "Your brother's startup has gained some serious traction," Mom continued. "He's working on a new battery storage system. If it works, it could change the clean energy industry." I didn't say anything. I already knew where this was going. "We've decided to invest in his company," Dad said. "All of it." I frowned. "All of what?" Mom looked away. Dad didn't flinch. "The full amount, $300,000. My breath caught. The room tilted slightly. You mean my college fund? The money you've been saving since I was born?" Dad gave a stiff nod. "It's an opportunity we couldn't pass up." "Ethan's project," I stood abruptly. "You gave everything to Ethan? Without even asking me?" "You'll just have to take out loans like everyone else," Mom said coolly. "Or maybe defer a year. There's a perfectly good community college nearby." "Community college?" I laughed, but it came out choked. "You told me to aim for the stars. You promised me this was for my future." "You're being selfish," she snapped. "This is for the family." "No, y whisperat. It's for Ethan. It's always been for Ethan." My father's voice boomed across the room. "Enough, Isla. You will support this family's decision. Be mature." I looked at them, the people who had always told me to be responsible, to work hard, to earn everything I got. And I had, but it had never been enough. In that moment, something inside me cracked. A quiet, final break. I nodded slowly, folded the Stanford letter, and stood without another word. As I climbed the stairs to my room, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just started packing. As I folded my clothes into the suitcase, no plan, no destination, just a primal need to leave, my mind kept looping back like a broken reel of film. I had spent the last 18 years preparing for a future that was never meant to be mine. Ethan had always been the golden child. For years older, he was charismatic, reckless, brilliant in that chaotic way that made people think he was destined for greatness. He'd breeze into a room with wild ideas and walk out with people nodding behind him convinced. Our parents saw him as a visionary, a genius, a leader. Even when he dropped out of college in his second semester to pursue innovation, they called it brave. When I skipped a grade in middle school, "Don't make Ethan feel bad." When I won first place in the state science fair, "You should let your brother present the project next time. He needs the confidence." When I got a summer internship at a real engineering firm at 15, "Don't post it online. It might upset Ethan." It was always like that. My achievements were measured by how they affected him, not in how they reflected my efforts, my hours, my silent resilience, just in how much they threatened Ethan's ego. I remember one evening so clearly, it might as well have been tattooed on my memory. I was 16. I had just received an invitation to an international research camp in Geneva, fully funded. Only 10 students from the U.S. had been selected. I ran into the kitchen, glowing, holding the envelope out like it was made of gold. Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. "We'll have to decline," he said. Mom nodded. "Ethan's therapist says he needs a reset. We've found a retreat for him in Bali. It's expensive, but we think it'll help." I stared at them, stunned. "But mine is free. I earned this." "We need to focus on Ethan right now," she said. "You'll have other chances." But I didn't. That was the chance. And they killed it with a shrug. From that day on, something in me changed. I stopped telling them about my wins. I just kept collecting them. Grades, awards, scholarships, like secret medals no one would ever clap for. My room became a museum of quiet success. Framed certificates on the wall, honor cords hanging from the mirror, trophies lining the bookshelf, achievements stacked neatly in a life where applause never came. And then there was the college fund. It had always been a thing. My dad would joke about it at dinners with family friends. Every month since she was born. "Isla's going Ivy. We're ready." He even showed me the account once, told me how compound interest worked, how smart they were being to secure my future. It wasn't just money. It was trust. It was their word. And now it was gone. Just like Geneva. Just like every other time I thought maybe, just maybe I mattered. I zipped up the bag and reached for the drawer where I kept my tutoring money. I'd saved it for something special, a hoodie from the Stanford bookstore, a new laptop. The envelope held $150 in small bills. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Underneath it, I found an old photograph. Me and Ethan, back when we were still kids, maybe 10 and 14. We were both smiling, holding hands in front of a science museum. I looked up to him once. I used to believe that one day, when he stopped chasing pipe dreams, we'd be friends. Siblings for real. Now I knew better. He wasn't the problem. They were. They raised me to believe in fairness, effort, justice. But they never practiced it. Not once. They built me into a woman they never intended to support. So I pulled my hoodie over my head, slung the backpack onto my shoulder, and took one last look at the room that had held 1,000 quiet victories. It didn't feel like a home anymore. It hadn't in years. No goodbye note. No guilt. Just one truth echoing in my chest. I was done being the backup plan. The bus ride to San Diego took 10 hours, but it felt like years. I sat in the back, hoodie pulled low, face pressed to the cold glass as the vineyards and valleys of Napa blurred into endless freeway. The letter from Stanford was still folded in my backpack, along with a few changes of clothes, my laptop, and the envelope with $150 in cash. My entire life, 18 years of dreams, effort, perfection, fit neatly under the seat in front of me. No one texted. No one called. Not even a "Where are you?" from Mom. I kept staring at my phone screen until the battery drained to black. Somehow that felt fitting. It was 2:17 a.m. when I stepped off the bus into the damp coastal air of San Diego. The station reeked of bleach and overcooked fries. A man in a sleeping bag mumbled something to himself near the vending machines. I pulled my bag tighter, walking fast like I had somewhere important to be. I didn't. The first motel I found was a squat building with flickering neon that said Ocean View, even though the only view was of a cracked parking lot. The receptionist, a guy in a tank top with greasy hair and sleepy eyes, barely looked at me. "Night rates $42. Cash up front," he said. I hesitated. That was nearly a third of what I had. But I nodded, slid the bills across the counter, and took the key to room 3B. The room smelled like mildew and burnt coffee. The bedspread had cigarette holes. The lamp tilted at an odd angle, like even it had given up. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at nothing for a long time. I wasn't scared. Not exactly. It was something else. A hollow, echoing quiet. The kind that fills your chest when you realize you could disappear and no one would notice. I curled up fully dressed, hugging my backpack like it was the only thing still tethered to me. And maybe it was. By morning, I had a plan. I didn't need their money. I didn't need their name. I just needed a job. A block down from the motel, tucked between a liquor store and a surf rental shack, was a bakery called Sea Whispers. The air outside smelled like yeast and sea salt. Inside, a woman with gray-streaked hair tied in a messy bun was yelling at a delivery guy about forgetting the almond flour again. Her name tag said Maria. She noticed me standing by the door. I must have looked like hell. "Something wrong with your mouth, kid?" she barked. I swallowed. "No, ma'am. Just wondering if you're hiring." She raised an eyebrow, looked me over. My oversized hoodie, the circles under my eyes, the way I clutched my bag like it held the rest of my soul. "You ever wash dishes?" "Yes, ma'am." "You lie good. That's a start. Coming back." And just like that, I had a job. Minimum wage. No benefits. No questions. Maria was tough, but fair. She yelled often, but not cruelly. I scrubbed pans and wiped counters and swept floors until my fingers cracked from the soap. But every evening, when the last croissant was sold and the last latte poured, she gave me a hot meal and let me sit by the window with a notebook and my laptop. I watched tourists come and go. I watched sunsets I never had time for before. I watched myself slowly begin to unlearn the silence. No one here knew my last name. No one compared me to a brother who could do no wrong. No one reminded me of the future I'd lost. It was terrifying. It was liberating. One night, I asked Maria why she hired me. "You looked like someone who'd been pushed off a cliff," she said. "I've seen that look before, and I know what it means." I looked down at my scraped knuckles. "What does it mean?" "It means you either crash," she said, lighting a cigarette, "or you learn how to fly." That night, I opened my laptop and created a folder on my desktop. Its name was simple: Start Over. No one in San Diego knew the name Isla Carter, and I liked it that way. I started introducing myself as Kate. It was simple, common, clean. I didn't even think twice. The first time Maria introduced me to a supplier as Kate, our new dishwasher, I didn't correct her. I just smiled, wiped the flour off my hands, and shook the man's hand like it had always been mine. Kate didn't cry in motel bathrooms. Kate didn't flinch every time a parent praised their child. Kate was too busy planning. Every evening after work, while Maria counted cash and closed the register, I sat by the bakery's front window with my laptop open and fingers flying. I built a simple website from scratch using the HTML and Java I'd learned in AP Computer Science. White background, navy font, minimalista logo, a single tagline, elite academic coaching from the Ivy League to you. I didn't lie. I didn't say I attended Stanford. I wrote, accepted to Stanford University, class of 20XX, deferred. It was technically true. I created profiles for packages, SAT prep, college essay consulting, AP tutoring. I even listed fake testimonials from past clients, each with carefully chosen first names and vague praise. We couldn't have gotten into Columbia without Kate. Ariella, parent, clear, calm, and incredibly smart. James, student by the end of the week. I had business cards printed at an all-night print shop. I walked back with them in my pocket like they were gold. The first client came faster than I expected. One of our regulars at the bakery, a woman named Vanessa, who always ordered almond croissants and almond milk lattes, overheard me helping Maria's niece with her trigonometry homework during a break. "Do you tutor?" she asked, brows raised. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "College admissions, test prep, STEM subjects mostly." "Good. My son's flunking AP chemistry. You're hired." That was the moment. The crack in the dam. By the end of the first month, I had 5 students, mostly rich, mostly bored, and mostly desperate for college dreams they hadn't earned. But I didn't judge them. I used them. Every mistake they made was another lesson I could monetize. I moved out of the motel and into a shared studio with 2 other girls who worked late-night shifts at a nearby hotel. We barely spoke, but that was fine. I wasn't there to make friends. By month 3, I was making enough to quit my shifts at Sea Whispers, though I still came in twice a week to help Maria with her books and inventory. She didn't pay me anymore. We developed a silent understanding. I helped her keep the bakery alive, and she helped me remember I was more than what they left behind. "You're good with numbers," she said one night as I recalculated supplier margins and optimized her delivery schedule. "But you're better with people. That's where the real power is." She was right. It wasn't just the tutoring. It was what the parents wanted from me. Hope, direction, someone who would tell them that their child, even with a 2.8 GPA and 0 extracurriculars, still had a chance at Yale, if they just worked hard enough. They didn't care about my name, or my family, or my pain. They only cared about what I could deliver. And I delivered. I began recruiting. Quietly. A girl who'd gotten into MIT but deferred. A guy who'd dropped out of Harvard because he couldn't afford the second semester. A valedictorian from Georgia who needed to pay rent. I offered them 70% of the fee. I handled branding, parent relations, scheduling. They tutored. It worked. Soon, elite academic coaching wasn't just me. It was a network, a system. I filed an LLC under Monroe Consulting. No trace of Carter. No connection to Napa. Just Kate Monroe, 20 years old, CEO of a fast-growing education brand with a wait list of clients stretching from Los Angeles to Seattle. The world that had once slammed its door in my face was now letting me in through a side entrance. And I wasn't going to knock. I was going to build a new house. My way. It was late on a Thursday night when the past came knocking. I had just wrapped a session with a senior named Lucas who was applying early decision to Yale, and we were dissecting his essay about overcoming adversity that mostly involved not making the tennis team his junior year. I logged off Zoom, rubbed my temples, and opened my emails. Buried between client inquiries and tutor schedules was a message flagged important from my financial analyst, Marcus. Subject: New investment opportunity urgent, look attached. An executive summary and debt profile for Carter Tech Energy Solutions. My heart stopped. I hadn't seen that name in over a year. I hadn't spoken it in almost 2. I clicked. The file opened with a simple header, Confidential Internal Review Investor Package, and there it was. My father's company. The pride of Richard Carter. The legacy Ethan was supposed to modernize with his vision. Except the numbers told a different story. The valuation had plummeted 60% in 18 months. A failed partnership with an energy startup in Berlin had cost them $12 million. Their flagship product, a next-gen battery unit, was stuck in legal limbo over intellectual property violations. My breath hitched when I saw the project name, Project Atlas. No, it couldn't be. That was mine. I developed a version of that exact storage system, cleaner, more scalable, more stable, for a private energy firm 6 months ago. My design, my equations, my simulations. It had become the backbone of Blue Nova Systems, a subsidiary I'd helped fund under Monroe Ventures. And now Carter Tech was pushing an inferior, barely functional copy. Ethan's signature was on the proposal. He'd stolen the concept. Or tried to, sloppily. The file went on to detail mounting debt, investor losses, and a desperate need for a capital injection. They were seeking $50 million to avoid total collapse. The final page listed potential investors, a short list of tech firms, venture capital funds, and Monroe Holdings. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the name I'd chosen years ago to break from the family that discarded me. They didn't know. They couldn't possibly know that Monroe Holdings, on paper a faceless conglomerate, was run by the girl they'd once told to be practical. They were circling the drain, clutching at anyone who might save them, and they were about to ask me for help. I closed my laptop slowly, letting the weight of it all settle. The irony would have been laughable if it hadn't been so deeply satisfying. After all the begging I'd done at 16 just to be seen, to be valued, not praised, just heard, now they needed me more than I ever needed them. I thought about letting them drown. Let Ethan choke on the ashes of his genius. Let my father watch his empire collapse. Let my mother taste what it was like to be told no for the first time in her life. But something inside me shifted. No, that wasn't the plan. Letting them fall wouldn't be enough. I wanted them to see me, not as the daughter they dismissed, but as the woman they never thought I could become. The woman who held all the cards, quietly, completely. I picked up my phone and called Marcus. Set up a meeting, I said, but keep the Monroe name on the paperwork. I don't want them to know who I am. Not yet. He paused. Any conditions? I smiled to myself, eyes fixed on the screen where Ethan's signature glared back at me like a child's crayon scribble. Not yet, but trust me, there will be. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, revealing the same glass corridor I had walked down so many times as a child, back when I still believed this building represented something permanent. Carter Tech headquarters hadn't changed. Same gleaming floors, same self-important marble statue in the lobby, same receptionist desk where I once waited while my father gave bored presentations behind closed doors. Only this time, I wasn't here to be ignored. I was here to take everything back. The assistant assigned to escort me, young, nervous, clearly new, called me Miss Monroe with such respect it almost made me laugh. She offered to take my coat. I declined. I wanted them to see me exactly as I was, sharp-angled navy blazer, silk blouse, heels that echoed with every step. The kind of woman, my mother once said, tried too hard. I was no longer Isla Carter, and I was certainly no longer trying. The boardroom was a rectangular tomb of desperation, dressed in luxury. Leather chairs, walnut table, 10 men and women in suits, eyes heavy with worry. And at the head, just as I expected, sat Richard Carter, CEO and relic of his own empire. Helen sat beside him, posture flawless, mouth a thin, tight line. And Ethan, of course, lounged like he owned the room, legs splayed, phone in hand, thumbs dancing over the screen like none of this concerned him. Miss Monroe, my father said, rising, we're honored to have you here. We've heard remarkable things about your firm. His handshake trembled just enough to give him away. Let's get to it, I said calmly, taking a seat across from them. I understand you're looking for a $50 million rescue. He nodded, flipping through the printed presentation he'd prepared. Charts, future projections, endless justifications. I let him talk. I watched his mouth move like a man rehearsing a script, desperate to sound confident. When he finished, I opened my laptop and connected to the boardroom screen. A graph appeared, bright, brutal, and clear. Your company's downward trajectory began approximately 20 months ago, I said, coinciding with your investment in Project Atlas, which, as you may or may not know, bears a troubling similarity to an existing proprietary model developed by Blue Nova Systems. I let the words hang in the air like smoke. My mother's fingers twitched. Ethan looked up for the first time. My father cleared his throat. We weren't aware of that overlap. No, I said, but I clicked to the next slide, my slide. The original schematics I had created. The same ones Ethan had tried to replicate and failed. How do you, my mother began, then stopped. How do I know this? I smiled faintly. Because I built it. I own it. And I've been watching Carter Tech stumble through it for months. My father's face went pale. Ethan stood abruptly, knocking over his water glass. You can't be. I am, I said, turning to look at him directly. Hello, Ethan. Silence fell over the room like a curtain dropping. Helen's voice cracked first. Isla. I leaned back, folding my hands neatly in my lap. It's Kate now. Kate Monroe. But yes, it's me. The daughter you emptied a college fund to feed your son's fantasy. The one you told to be mature while you threw my future away. Richard's hands curled into fists. You lied. No, I said quietly. I left. You forced me to. You could have come back, my mother whispered. I laughed soft but sharp. Come back? After you handed him $300,000 and told me to try community college. Ethan tried to regain control. This is ridiculous. You're just bitter. No, I said, rising slowly. I'm successful, and you're bankrupt. I turned to the board of directors. Let's talk about the deal on the table. They sat forward instantly, desperate for any solution. I outlined the terms: full acquisition of Carter Tech debt by Monroe Holdings, immediate technology transfer from Blue Nova Systems to save the flagship product, and a complete restructuring of leadership. Ethan scoffed. You can't fire me. I'm not firing you, I said coolly. I'm removing you. Legally. Permanently. My mother stood. You can't do this to your family. You're right, I replied. I can't. But to me, this isn't family. This is business. Richard's voice cracked for the first time. What do you want from us? I met his eyes and, for a long second, said nothing. Then, calmly, evenly, I want you to say it. Out loud. That letting me go was the biggest mistake of your life. He looked down. My mother wiped her cheek. And Ethan finally went quiet. After a long moment, my father nodded. It was good, I said, collecting my things. The paperwork will arrive by morning. You'll sign. You'll step down. And Carter Tech will become something worth saving. At the door, I paused and turned back. Oh, and Mom. I smiled. Remember that community college you once suggested I try? They're now one of my foundation's biggest scholarship recipients. Funny how things work out. Then I walked out, heels clicking, heart steady, the weight of a decade lifted in a single stride. The city glittered below as the car glided silently down the highway. I sat in the back seat, watching the skyline pass like a memory I had once dreamed but never dared to believe would be mine. San Francisco looked different now. Smaller, tamer, or maybe I was just bigger than I'd ever been. Maria sat beside me, flipping through the signed documents with a practiced eye. She still wore the same leather jacket, the same chipped nail polish, but something about her presence always made the world feel a little clearer. So, she said, closing the folder, Carter Tech is yours. What now? I took a sip of the green tea she'd handed me. Perfectly steeped, no sugar, exactly the way I liked it. Now we fix it, I said. Strip de ego. Clean the books. Turn it into something that matters. She raised an eyebrow. And your family? I shrugged. They'll adjust. Or they won't. Either way, it's not my responsibility anymore. The truth was, I didn't need their approval. Not anymore. The power I held now wasn't in their hands. It never had been. They just made me believe it was. That belief kept me small, obedient, replaceable, but they were wrong. In my office, framed neatly on the wall, hang 4 things. The Stanford acceptance letter I never got to use. My first business license under the name Monroe Consulting. A photo of the storefront of Sea Whispers with Maria standing in front, smiling and holding a tray of croissants. And a cheap plastic name tag that reads, Kate Dishwasher. Each one tells a different story of the girl I was, the woman I became, and the journey no one planned for me, least of all my family. Sometimes I wonder if I would have built all this had they supported me. If they'd said, we believe in you, Isla, would I still have found the fire? Maybe not. Maybe comfort would have made me complacent. Maybe love, or the illusion of it, would have made me stay. But they didn't, and I didn't. And that made all the difference. Because I didn't just survive. I didn't just succeed. I built something bigger than them, bigger than their expectations, bigger than their legacy. I built something of my own. And every time they see the name Carter Monroe Technologies on a magazine cover or a news segment or a stock ticker climbing higher and higher, they'll remember the girl they told to try community college. The girl they never looked back for. But I won't look back either. Not in bitterness, not in anger, only in quiet triumph. Because in the end, the best revenge wasn't taking anything from them. It was proving once and for all that I never needed them to begin with.